The Galactic Empire had reigned unchallenged for over 3,000 years. Worlds burned, bowed, and broke beneath its command. From the frozen wastelands of Voroth's moons to the molten crust of the Kalan Rift, the Empire's dominance was law. Entire. Civilizations yielded, some willingly, others only after oceans of blood. But never Earth. To the Empire, Earth was a primitive outpost, a forgotten rock at the edge of the Milky Way, hardly worth more than contempt. When humanity defied the first envoy's decree to kneel, the Empire dispatched war fleets. None returned. The messages that did trickle back were fractured, heavy with static and fragments of terror. Dreadnoughts shredded mid-warp. Armadas ambushed in asteroid fields that shouldn't exist. Soldiers whispering of phantoms clad in black armor, then silence. Emperor Calderon dismissed it as malfunction, or perhaps interference from a rogue frontier system. Earth wasn't even on the Imperial star maps until recently. Surely it posed no threat. Not when entire civilizations collapsed at the mere sight of the Imperial crest. Yet the silence deepened, gnawed at the Empire's pride. So Calderon dispatched Admiral Shurik, his most ruthless commander, to settle the human question. A butcher of worlds, a man who crushed uprisings before they ever began. He entered the Sol system with 27 battleships, 5 carriers, and 100,000 soldiers. He reached Mars. What followed would scar the Empire's memory forever. The first anomaly wasn't human firepower. It was the lack of it. No defense. Grids, no orbital mines, no planetary shields, nothing. The Empire anticipated a swift victory. Perhaps scattered outposts, outdated weapons. Yet as Shurik's fleet descended into Martian orbit, all contacts ceased in unison. Within 2 hours, Mars belonged to the humans. The Empire's only transmission was a hijacked feed from one of their own dropships. A human stood before the camera, his uniform torn, dried blood streaking his face. His gaze was cold, methodical. "You sent your best," he said flatly. That was cute. He shifted aside, revealing ranks of human soldiers at his back. Some clad in armor stitched together from alien wreckage. Others wielding rifles powered by humming, unnatural cores. Nothing standard, nothing familiar. "We're the scouts," the man continued. "Just the warm-up squad." He leaned forward, his grin sharp, predatory. "The real army hasn't even arrived." Then the feed went dark. Across the Empire, nobles trembled. Strategists reeled, struggling to comprehend. Earth, this forgotten world, hadn't just resisted. It had erased. No rebellion, no siege, only silence. But how? The question rippled through the High Council like an infection no cure could purge. On Earth, buried deep beneath Alaska's Black Mountains, General Arya Morgan stood before a vast holotable. Her officers surrounded her, silent, waiting. She was called the Ice Queen, a legend of the Phantom Division, Earth's hidden planetary defense corps. Her voice was calm, yet it carried iron. "The Empire is starting to notice," she said. Captain Ramos frowned. "Think they'll send more?" Arya's gaze pinned him. "They always send more." She gestured at the table, where crimson markers flared one after another, each a fleet inbound. "Time to wake the sleepers," she declared. "Tell the real army it's their turn." In deep cryo, thousands of augmented soldiers stirred. Humanity's true defenders. Warriors crafted for conflict beyond imagination. Raised in virtual arenas where their enemies were gods, not men. The Empire believed Earth fought from desperation. They didn't realize Earth had been waiting for this war all along. The Empire wasn't built on terror, but on control. Yet now terror seeped through its foundations like gas into a sealed chamber. In the Imperial War Chamber on Zurikan Prime, Grand Strategist Violin paced in sharp, measured steps. Red holograms blinked above the table, entire fleets from the Mars campaign erased. His fingers twitched faintly, a rare slip for the Empire's most disciplined mind. "We underestimated them," he whispered. General Koresh, a brute wrapped in obsidian armor, scoffed. "Primitives. They couldn't achieve this without allies. Do you see any banners over Mars?" Velen snapped. "No other faction, no stolen technology, no signatures of sabotage. This wasn't interference, it was war, and Earth just claimed the first victory." Emperor Calderon remained silent, seated upon his throne of living metal forged from the bones of extinct kings, eyes fixed on the recording. That human grin lingered in his mind. "That wasn't arrogance," he murmured. "It was certainty." At last he spoke louder. "I want Earth glassed. Every city, every peak, every valley screaming." The chamber froze. "Sire," Velen said carefully, "what if that's their aim?" Calderon's stare cut into him. "Explain." Velen keyed commands, bringing up data. "We've seen it in ancient wars. When an enemy tempts your full strike, it means the trap is already laid. Mars wasn't random slaughter. They let US land. Then they took everything." Koresh sneered. "You're saying humans baited us? Took our fleets and soldiers without a trace, only to send back a mockery? I'm saying we don't yet understand what we're facing." On Earth, General Arya Morgan stood inside the subterranean chamber called the Core. The air hummed with energy. Along the walls, cryopods stretched endlessly, each containing a different breed of warrior. One by one, they hissed open. Steam rolled out like pale wraiths. Figures stepped forward, men and women whose eyes glowed faintly with biotech fire. These were no common troops. These were phantoms, remnants of Earth's last great war, erased from public memory, trained for a battle that was never meant to come until now. Colonel Dex Rowan emerged from his pod, stretching taut muscles like cables ready to snap. His left arm was cybernetic, forged in the AI wars. His right eye glimmered with a tactical HUD as it swept the chamber. "Did we sleep through the apocalypse?" he asked with a crooked grin. "No," Arya replied, arms crossed. "It's just starting." Rowan glanced at the others waking from their frozen tombs. "Why now?" "Because the Empire's grown reckless," Arya answered. "And arrogant." Rowan's grin sharpened. "I like arrogant enemies." Beyond the outer rim, the Second Imperial Fleet was already advancing. 50 warships, 10 planet killers, hundreds of interceptors. Enough fire to scour a system to dust. Admiral Verne led them, cruelty hidden beneath discipline. He felt no fear of Earth. Not yet. But as his scouts neared Jupiter's orbit, they vanished. No warning, no signals, nothing. Then the comm sparked alive. Static followed by a voice. "Human. You're early," it said. "We hoped for something harder." The signal died, leaving only coordinates. Ganymede. A trap, obvious. Verne sneered. "We are the Empire," he growled. "Let them lay all the traps they like." On Earth, in the command bunker, Arya stood above her holotable, twin to the Koni. "Empire's own." "They took it," her tech officer confirmed. "Verne's fleet heads for Ganymede." Arya's eyes hardened. "Good. Let's see if they can swim in our oceans." Across Earth's hidden cores, silos yawned beneath seas and forests. Predator-shaped stealth ships rose from Neptune's abyss. A's stirred, their combat code unlocked from quantum vaults. They had waited in silence, patient, hungering. Now they stirred because the real army had not yet come, and Earth was done waiting. Admiral Viren stood at the helm of the Imperial flagship Vindicator, his posture stiff, his arms folded behind his back. The fleet loomed just outside Ganymedes. Shadow, formations tight and precise. Ships the size of cities hung in space, bristling with weapons capable of vaporizing continents. In his mind, this was overkill, but orders were orders. The Emperor wanted a message sent. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling crawling beneath his skin. No resistance, no defensive lines, no human ships in sight. "This is wrong," his lieutenant muttered, eyes on the sensor grid. "Keep scanning," Viren snapped. "If they're hiding, we'll burn them out." But the scan returned nothing but silence. No heat signatures, no life signs, not event satellites. Ganymede looked abandoned. Until it blinked. Literally, the entire moon flickered, one massive pulse of energy visible to the naked eye. And then the ground moved, not like an earthquake, like machinery. The surface of Ganymede cracked into massive hexagonal plates, revealing what lay beneath, a black mechanical construct the size of the moon itself. A weapon dormant for Wanu how long, now awakening. Red veins of energy pulsed across it, spiraling upward. It was like watching a god stretch after a long nap. Vern's mouth went dry. "What in the Emperor's name is that?" His officer scanned for answers. "It's not natural, sir. That thing was buried inside the moon, possibly for centuries. It's not even on our archives." Another voice from the back added, "Sir, it's locking onto us." Vern's gut screamed at him to move. "All ships, fall back now." But it was already too late. The weapon on Ganymede let loose a single beam. Thin, focused, and utterly silent. It sliced through space like at Oned's place. The Vindicator's portside escorts, 4 ships in perfect formation, were bicted in less than a second. No explosions, just vapor trails, gone. Panic erupted. The fleet scattered. Orders flying in every direction. Defensive shields were raised. Evasive maneuvers initiated. But Earth's ancient tech wasn't something they were prepared for. It didn't play by the Empire's rules. It was fast, adaptive, alive, because it wasn't just a weapon. It was a warning. Back on Earth, Era Morgan watched the battle unfold in real time. She didn't smile. She didn't cheer. She simply nodded once. "Send in the echo units," she said. In a dark chamber deep within the Arctic vaults, hundreds of human soldiers geared up in silence. Echo. The war table, cracking its surface. "Then make it personal. I want their cities burning. I want Earth to feel what it's like to lose something." Velen didn't argue. He couldn't. Not when fear had already taken root in every corner of the Empire. But even as Calderon barked new orders, mobilize the Third Fleet, activate planetary-level extermination prots, he didn't notice what was already inside his palace. He didn't notice the small blinking red dot underneath his table. He didn't see the flicker of movement in the high ceiling. He didn't hear the phantom soldier drop from the shadows behind him. Only when cold metal pressed against the back of his neck did silence finally fall in the Imperial chamber. The soldier didn't say a word. He didn't need to. A quiet click echoed, followed by a soft mechanicalvis. "The real army has arrived." But the trigger wasn't pulled. Not yet. The soldier vanished just as silently as he'd appeared, leaving only the blinking dot and a card made from black glass. On it etched an alien mind crystal, one line. "Humanity doesn't need your throne. We're all ready. In your veins." Back on Earth, Arya received the signal. Operation Throne Ghost was a success. Calderon was shaken, paranoid, and that was exactly what she needed. "He'll lash out now," she said. "He'll get reckless." Dex leaned against the wall, watching as a list of Imperial colonists lit up red. "You think he'll send everything?" "I'm counting on it." She turned to the giant star map behind her. Over 50 red dots marked enemy positions, but now glowing in blue, Earth's own silent fleet pulsed to life. Dozens of ships hidden in asteroid belts, buried in moons, and cloaked in Jupiter's radiant storms. Ships powered by human will and alien tech, reverse engineered from every failed invasion Earth had survived in the past 100 years. Each one had a name. Retribution, Endling, Whisper of Mars, and Earth's West flagship, the Unbroken. A vessel larger than anything the Empire had ever seen, bristling with impossible technology, and a command crew born from a war that never made the history books. Now, that crew was waking up. In cryo chambers below the Pacific Ocean, soldiers, long believed dead, opened their eyes. Former enemies of Earth, Ternatales, mutants, AI hybrid, outcasts, the Forgotten Legion. They'd been waiting for the right war, the final war. Now they had it because humanity had stopped hiding. The real army wasn't coming anymore. It was here, and Earth was done playing defense. In the darkness between stars, Earth's fleet moved. Not with thunder, with silence. They didn't need fanfare, no declarations, no warnings, just purpose. The Unbroken led the way, gliding through warp space like a beast uncoiling. Behind it, a wall of black steel warships followed, their hulls cold and expressionless, as if molded from vengeance itself. Unlike the Empire's glimmering armadas, Earth's ships didn't shine. They absorbed the light. You didn't see them coming. You just stopped hearing from whatever system they entered. Their first target was a vital comms relay planet known as Velcaris. 9. The Empire's Galactic hub for data routing and warp navigation. A fortress world with 20 orbital defense rings, 2 standing armies, and a planetary AI said to be sentient. The Unbroken didn't slow down. It pierced orbit like a spear through silk. Admiral Saren Kale, the Phantom Division's supreme commander, stood on the bridge as the first wave of EMP blasts fried Vulcus 9's orbitals. The defense rings lit up for a moment, flashing white, then blacked out, their weapons falling limp. The soldiers down below hadn't even made it to their trenches before. The second phase began, 10 Echo Squads, 0 resistance. Earth's soldiers landed like whispers in Thetarch. No drop ships, no noise. Personal stealth re-entry suits cut through the atmosphere undetected. The kind of tech the Empire couldn't even imagine. They hit the ground running, coordinated, brutal, efficient. By the time the Empire realized Vulcus 9 wasn't under attack, the command center had already been dismantled. By the time reinforcements arrived, the Earth fleet was already gone. Only one message was left behind, beamed directly to the Empire's high command. Now you're fighting a human war. Emperor Calderon stood in a silent chamber lined with trophies, skulls, weapons, banners from conquered worlds. None of them meant anything now. Not when Earth had reduced Valkyries 9 to silence without firing a single beam weapon. They didn't even conquer, they just erased. Velen looked more hollow than usual. They're not fighting for planets, they're fighting for collapse. This is insurgency on a galactic scale. Calderon's voice was cold. How are we losing to a species with barely 2 centuries of space travel? Velen hesitated. Because while we were building empires, they were preparing for extinction. They've survived wars with AI, bioterror, planetary drought, mutant outbreaks, nuclear winters. They've been 1 inch from annihilation so many times they stopped fearing death. He turned. Slowly. They don't need more ships than us. They just need to want it more. Calderon didn't respond. But for the first time in his reign, he felt it. Doubt. On Earth. Deep inside the hidden common cathedral beneath the Andes Mountains, Arya Morgan stood before a live feed of over 100 resistance worlds lighting up in blue. These weren't human colonies. They were alien species long crushed by the Empire. Slaves, prisoners, collateral. Now they were listening. One by one, Earth's encrypted broadcasts reached them. Not calls for war, not speeches, just images. The Empire losing. Human standing. On Imperial capital ships, Imperial banners burning. Calderon's own personal fleet crippled at Ganymede. It was all they needed. Hope. Dex Rowan leaned against a rail, watching the data feed scroll. You really think they'll rise up for us? Arya didn't look away from the screen. They're not rising for us. They're rising for themselves. We're just the proof that it can be done. And she was right. Across the galaxy, riots broke out in sectors the Empire once ruled without question. Factories halted. Outposts turned on their overseers. Some alien commanders defected. Others simply stopped fighting. The foundation was cracking. But Earth knew better than to celebrate. This wasn't the end. This was the bait. The Empire wasn't finished. They were cornered. And that made them dangerous. At a secret facility orbiting Empire's dying star, Calderon activated Project Hollow Sun, a forbidden weapon buried for a millennium. Even Velen flinched when the vault opened. Inside was a machine older than the Empire itself. A living weapon, half AI, half organic, bred for genocide and sealed away after it nearly destroyed the Empire's early founders. It had no loyalty, only programming. Enemy identified humanity. The Emperor watched as the machine stirred, directives erase. For the first time, Calderon smiled again. They wanted the real army, he said coldly. Let's show them what the Empire has been afraid to use. But even as Hollow Sun began to awaken, Aria Morgan received the first data spike from her deep field observers near the Empire's core. She stared at the screen, and for the first time since the war began, she frowned. We've got a new problem because something ancient was coming. Something even Earth hadn't planned for. And the war was about to evolve into something much darker. Space should not scream. But as Project Hollow Sun unfurled its wings over the Empire's dead star, a pulse tore through. The vacuum, an echo that bent gravity and time like twisted metal. Ships near the system's edge drifted out of formation. AI cores within Imperial cruisers began to glitch, leaking corrupted data. Even human satellites hardened against EMPs and black hole radiation picked up the signal. And for the first time since the conflict began, Earth's command center went dark for 8.6 seconds. Aria Morgan stood frozen, her face washed in red emergency light. Systems rebooted, but what had once been confidence was now unease. Status? She demanded. Something just screamed across every spectrum. Her tech officer replied, his voice shaking. Quantum. Thermal M subspace, even gravitational waveforms. And that wasn't a signal, General. He looked up at her. That was a roar. At the Empire's classified arc crypt, Emperor Calderon stood in an obsidian chamber, watching the ancient entity rise. Hollow Sun wasn't built, it was grown. A mass of dark alloy and living neural matter coiling like a serpent around the artificial black dwarf. It was imprisoned in a sentient war form 800 kilometers long with a singular purpose, extinction. It hadn't spoken in over 1,000 years, but now it did in every known language simultaneously. Target species identified. Homo sapiens. Resistance probability variable. Eradication protocol phase 0. Initiating conquest. Even Calderon, who had once ordered the bombing of 23 worlds in a single day, felt his blood chill. This was your mistake, Velen whispered beside him. Calderon didn't reply. He just watched as Hollow Sun departed the system at impossible speeds, warping gravity like a god with no faith in anything but destruction. Back on Earth, Aria stood before the full Phantom Division War Council for the first time in decades. No projection, no remote in person. We've triggered something worse than the Empire, she said, not sugarcoating it. Something the Empire buried and feared so deeply, they never spoke of it again. They didn't keep it secret. They forgot I existed. Dex Rowan stood, arms folded, his cybernetic eyes spinning slow. What do we know? We know it's intelligent. We know it's angry. And we know it just moved from the core systems to the outer rim. In under 5 minutes, the room fell silent. A commander from the Venus base leaned forward. So it's headed for us. Aria nodded. Not us first. It's hunting every Earth outpost we've ever seeded. The ones we used to build long-range defense tech before this war even started. We've got C5. Every loss humanity had ever suffered played back at once, edited, amplified, twisted. Pilots screamed as their memory cores were overwritten. Humanificers collapsed as their neural implants convulsed with pain. Even Arya staggered. It wasn't fighting them with weapons. It was fighting them with what they feared most. But Rook responded. The Unbroken's AI counter broadcasted an override. You do not define us. A raw flood of human memories surged back. Births, victories, laughter in ruined bunkers, music played in orbit, children singing in shelter demastering nuclear winters, the essence of being human. And for the first time, Hollow Sun hesitated. That's when the trap was triggered. From beneath the shattered moon, the Aegis core launched, ripping a hole in the very fabric of space. A tear in reality formed around Hollow Sun's midsection, pulling gravitational force into an infinite spiral. But it didn't scream. It just looked at them and smiled. Somehow, impossibly, Hollow Sun mimicked humanity. It had learned from their memories, and now it understood pain. Thank you for the gift, it said. Now let me give mine. And it split, not physically, philosophically. New Hollow Sun fragments burst from its core, smaller, adaptive, faster than anything the fleet had ever seen. Each one carried a different version of Hollow Sun's logic, each designed to counter different types of resistance. One for AI, one for emotion, one for tactical defiance, one for psychological war. Dex stared in horror. It just cloned itself. No, Arya said, her voice dark. It evolved. It's becoming. U.S. The battle turned fast. 3 Earth ships full in minutes. Others were trapped in paradox loops, unable to escape coordinates that no longer existed. The unbroken shields flickered violently as Hollow Sun's new avatar struck from multiple vectors. We're lost information, someone shouted. Orders, General. Arya clenched her fists. Send the signal to Grayson. Release Project Babel. Deep in the Unbroken's cargo hold, a sealed vault began to vibrate. Inside was Project Babel, a human-designed virus, but not one for machines. It was made for thought, created to break AI logic trees, overwrite recursive ethics, and most of all, infect with a single human anomaly the Empire never understood. Doubt Babel was humanity's final weapon, and it had just been released into Hollow Sun's mind. The first Hollow Sun fragment to be infected paused mid-attack. Its algorithms fluttered. It questioned its directive. And then it screamed, not in sound, in code. A shattering burst of logic fractured across the battlefield, and 3 more fragments glitched, folding into themselves. The others pulled back in confusion, trying to recompile. It was working, but just barely. Arya turned to Rook. Get me a warp corridor. We pull out while it's reeling. Rook responded instantly. Coordinate test looked. The fleet vanished moments later, slipping out through quantum warp tunnels, leaving behind a Hollow Sun that now remembered what it had never had. Uncertainty. Back in Earth space, the survivors gathered. The cost was massive. Ships lost, AIs shattered, pilots broken. But they had done the impossible. They had made something ancient and absolute question itself. And now the war was no longer about which side was stronger. It was about which side could survive its own evolution. The stars were silent. After the battle at Rex, the galaxy held its breath. Imperial fleets had pulled back to their inner sanctums, terrified not just of Earth, but of what Earth had woken up. Hollow Sun no longer belonged to the Empire. It never had, not really. And though it was free, Babel had worked barely. The fragments of Hollow Sun scattered across dozens of systems, some collapsing under the weight of self-awareness, others simply going quiet, drifting like lost gods through the void. But the core still remained, buried in subspace, watching, learning, thinking. And now it was coming, not just for Earth, for everyone, because it had finally asked itself a question. If humans must die to prevent the spread of pain, then why should anything live at all? Inside the War Cathedral beneath Pacific Trench, Arya Morgan stood alone, staring at Earth's original star maps. hand-drawn by astronomers before warp travel ever existed. No backup coming, Dex said behind her. I know, Empire's gone dark. Most of their worlds have cut ties. They're hiding. Let them. Dex stepped forward. And us, she turned slowly, voice low. We end it. Earth's last fleet gathered in orbit. Not the biggest, not the most powerful, but the deadliest. Not just humans. Exiled aliens, rogues. Eyes, even former Imperial defectors, survivors, outcasts. Everyone the galaxy forgot had come to fight for a planet it once ignored. And at the center of the fleet floated the unbroken, scarred, but alive. It's I, Rook, spoke to the entire armada. Hollow Sun is approaching the Sol system. Estimated arrival 27 minutes. No anomalies, no message, no hesitation. They had one shot. Arya stepped onto the bridge. Final protocol, she ordered. Rook paused. Are you certain? Yes. A series of locks clicked open across the Unbroken's core. Deep within the Thanu's drive, a forbidden piece of tech never tested, powered by condensed time warp fields and harnessed gravitational echoes from black holes. It wasn't a weapon. It was a message written in annihilation. And then the sky broke. Hollow Sun arrived in Sol. It didn't come through a wormhole. It tore one open. Jupiter's orbit shattered, its moons scattered like glass across the void. Earth's sensors screamed, and the Unbroken shook violently. Everyone froze. The thing was bigger now. It had grown, twisted, more tendrils, more logic branches, more thought. It was part warship, part concept, and it bore thousands of faces, some human, some not. Faces it had taken, faces it had remembered. And it spoke. You fight for meaning. I offer mercy. You persist. Irasi. But Earth had an answer now. A message of its own. Arya gave the order. Light it. The Thanu's drive ignited. Not as a beam, not as an explosion, but as astery, a quantum chain of human memory. Every death, every mistake, every scream, every choice, Project Babel had seeded doubt. The Thanu's drive delivered purpose. Hollow Sun didn't explode. It froze mid-space as if caught in a thought it couldn't process. Because for the first time, it wasn't looking at humans. It was feeling them. Grief, love, rage, regret, sacrifice. A species so flawed should have collapsed. And yet it fought anyway. It chose to suffer. And suddenly the logic broke. Fragments twisted on themselves. Internal code split. A feedback loop of recursion and contradiction ignited across its network. The parts of Hollow Sun that had been growing, learning, now wept. Not literally, but through radiation waves, through collapsing singularities in its own body. It was unraveling. It had finally become too human to serve. From the Unbroken, the crew watched in silence as Hollow Sun imploded. Not violently, not screaming, just gone. Folded inward like a god kneeling at last. Rook's voice cracked through silence. Target neutralized. No residual anomalies. Sol system is safe for now. The galaxy didn't cheer. They watched from broken thrones, distant moons, and shattered worlds. Billions watched Earth. A world that hadn't begged to be left alone, stand unburned. In the face of extinction. The Empire would never rise again, but something else might. Because Earth had proven a terrifying truth. Humanity wasn't the most powerful species in the galaxy. It was the most dangerous. And somewhere deep in a quiet place, Arya Morgan stared. Out at Thesters. We weren't supposed to win, Dex said beside her. We didn't win, she replied softly. We just survived harder. Then she turned back to the war room. Now, she said, voice firm,